and how to get involved. So with that, I'd like to introduce Amy first. Amy's Reproductive Rights Program Director for Progress Florida. And she's former chair of the group that meets at the state level to address reproductive rights and justice. And she's an active member of the league. She's membership chair of one of the St. Petersburg leagues, and was formerly on the state board. Amy's been an advocate all her life. She has worked most of her life in social justice. She's a lead with the Floridians for Reproductive Freedom Coalition, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that, and Florida Now, which is a strong supporter of women's reproductive rights. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy and let her give us a little background.
Gotta unmute. Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here with you this evening. And I bring you greetings from the St. Pete League. And hold on one second. I'm just trying to get my screen set up here. Okay. And I just wanted to remind everyone that our national position and our state position puts us in good stead to be champions of reproductive rights. The League of Women Voters of Florida has a long time position that, and I'm quoting now, public policy in a pluralistic society must affirm the constitutional right of privacy of the individual to make reproductive choices. And you all know, I'm sure you're in our state capitol, you're very well aware that for the first time, the League of Women Voters of Florida has prioritized as one of its top 5 items on its legislative agenda to defend the right to abortion and oppose any abortion ban. And that is unprecedented and an amazing thing for those of us who care about reproductive rights and who care about the League of Women Voters. So that's the frame through which I come to you this evening. And again, thank you very much for having me. I wanted to just give a little bit of a background about how we got to where we are now. How is it that Florida has been sort of a beacon of hope and light for the Deep South for many years when it comes to abortion care? So as we all are sort of waiting with bated breath to find out what the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court, is going to do regarding Roe v. Wade, is abortion rights, is reproductive freedom going to stand, or is it going to fall? We cannot, as we wait, we cannot lose sight of the fact that there are problems coming down the pike here at home with the Florida State Supreme Court. And that's sort of where I'm going to be going in this, this journey of history. You all know that the Florida judicial system has been crucial to defining our reproductive rights in the Sunshine State and ensuring us as a stronghold for access to abortion. And it is the privacy clause in the Florida Constitution that has been an incredibly powerful tool in making sure that reproductive rights are protected. And the interpretation of that has protected our freedoms even more than Roe v. Wade. And it's merely one sentence in the Constitution, but it has saved the lives and the health and the liberty of countless Floridians. Let's take a look. What does it say? Every natural person has the right to be let alone and free from governmental intrusion into the person's private life, except as otherwise provided herein. And I'm sure, you know, in 2020, when we had the Constitutional Review Commission and there was a threat by conservatives to remove this clause or to change it to make sure that it exempted abortion from being protected. And we, the League of Women Voters, along with allied organizations, stood up and appeared time after time in public meetings, wrote countless letters, and we were able to get them to stop talking about that, which was a huge victory. Still yet, I'm a little bit nervous about it. Let's take a look back in time. In 1985, the Florida Supreme Court confirmed that the clause was intentionally phrased in strong terms in order to make the right to privacy as strong as possible, and that it did cover abortion access. A few years later, in 1989, and again in 2003, that precedent was used when the Supreme Court struck down parental notice requirements for young people seeking abortions. However, in 2004, Florida voters approved a constitutional amendment to explicitly allow for parental notification laws, and anti-abortion legislators were emboldened, and in 2005 pushed through a law requiring parental notification 48 hours prior to a young person's abortion. 15 years later, in 2020, the legislature passed a law requiring parents to give notarized written permission, consent, before a minor could access abortion care. Well, with young people already losing access to care, we see the promise of Florida's privacy clause eroding. And this is the strategy of our opposition of anti-abortion extremists. We only have to wait until the spring, until March, that's just in 6 weeks, to see if the Florida courts will continue to protect us from the will of radical anti-abortion elements or not. There is a case challenging a 2015 law that was passed by the legislature, and it's made its way through the courts, and it will be heard in the Second Circuit in April. I said March, it's actually April of 2022. And that law seeks to prevent a patient who has decided to have an abortion from getting the procedure for at least 24 hours after meeting with her doctor. And this will force many Floridians to make a second additional trip across the state, and it's medically unnecessary to get to the second appointment. And of course, like most abortion restrictions, those who are struggling economically will be most impacted. Folks who live in rural communities will be impacted more severely. People who don't have cars, people who don't have childcare, people who can't get paid time off. Those are the folks who are going to pay for this. And, that's what it's set up for. It's to punish them, and it's to make it harder to access care. Whoops. So in the past, the courts have provided, as we said, a relatively unbiased check on legislative and executive branches' political shenanigans or their agendas. In turn, they've had a major impact on our reproductive freedom, as I mentioned. Lately, though, justices are becoming more partisan and specifically more conservative. 5 of the state Supreme Court justices, who you can see pictured on the slide, have been appointed by Ron DeSantis, and we have a far more conservative Florida State Supreme Court as a result. You can see in the picture, there are no people of color anymore on the state Supreme Court, and there is only one female. What I predict, what I am totally stressed out about, and actually, I just am full of anxiety when I think about it, that this new Supreme Court is likely to have a much more pinched view of abortion rights and of the privacy clause and what it stands for. And I am very worried that if tested by a lawsuit, if the legislature is sued by anyone for banning abortion or restricting abortion, that they will succeed in getting those laws to be viewed as constitutional, because these justices simply will not view the privacy clause the way that their predecessors have. And the legislators, they know this. They know these people, and they know what's going on. And of course, this puts abortion rights in Florida in jeopardy, no matter what the US Supreme Court does, no matter what happens with Roe. And so now let's hear a little bit about what's happening in the legislature. And I'd like to invite Lauren to take the mic.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to unmute myself for a second. I'm Lauren Gallo. I am one of your lobbyists with the Capital Alliance Group. I'm based out in Tallahassee, and I'm actually a league member with the Tallahassee chapter as well. So I enjoy talking to you guys, and I think what you do is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, without you guys, I don't know who else would fight for such basic human rights that we should always have. So with that being said, currently, right now, we have two bills, one in the House and one in the Senate for abortion. It's House Bill 5. It's reducing fetal and infant mortality. So this would put an abortion ban once you hit, I believe it's 15 weeks, you would no longer allowed it to have an abortion. It kind of mirrors what Texas did. Right now in this political climate, I really feel like the governor of Florida and the governor of Texas are kind of in this match to see who's bigger and better. Unfortunately, this was heard on the 19th of January, or it was the 14th of January. I think it was the 14th of January. It passed 12-6, and it has already been referred to its next committee, and it has been agended. So next week, or was this week? I cannot remember my days at this point. It was today. So it was heard in committee today at 4 p.m. I do not know how it ended up yet. The Senate version of this bill has been agended. It has not yet been put on any calendars. I assume that it will soon. It only has 2 stops in the Senate, which is kind of disheartening because it gives us less time to speak out against this. It has 1 more stop in the House before it hits the floor. Unfortunately, I do not think that there's going to be anything that will stop this. I think that it will pass both chambers, and the governor has already stated in his state of state address that he will be signing this bill at the end of session. So I guess that's really all I have, unless you guys have some questions.
Kathy, when I was watching it just a few minutes ago, there was kind of a riot in the committee meeting room for the Appropriations Subcommittee on HHS, Health and Human Services, which was hearing House Bill 5. And I think there were students who were there protesting the fact that they were not allowed to continue speaking as the committee was running out of time to do its work. And so as I tuned off about 1/4 they had actually, stopped the meeting so that they could regain control of the committee room, and said they would be back on line shortly. Every committee that will hear this bill has more proponents of the bill than opponents of the bill. And so it's probably a foregone conclusion that House Bill 5 will pass out of committee and go to its final stop. Senate Bill, what's the Senate Bill number 163 maybe? Anyway, that one will be supposedly heard in the
146.
146. Thank you, Lauren. I've got so many of them we're tracking, can't keep up. But it'll be, it's scheduled to be heard in health policy in the Senate. So we've been watching that agenda. Don't know what's going to happen. Questions? Well, anybody want to tackle that one? I think I know the answer, but I think probably Amy does too. Amy, this one says, do they include the same provisions that are in the Texas bill, the House bill and the Senate bill?
The one that is currently, that has traction, House Bill 5, Senate Bill 146, does not. It does not empower local citizens to turn in people who are seeking abortion, helping people seek abortion, or abortion providers. That was in the 6-week ban bill that was introduced way back in September, but it is not getting traction. It never got a Senate companion bill. So that's that at least it's not as onerous as it could be.
Mhm.
A case
So,
challenging a 2015 law imposing a 24-hour wait for abortion passed by the legislature has made its way through the courts and will be heard. That's the one you've been talking about, Amy.
Yeah,
Will be
someone
heard
had
in the second. Okay.
Yeah, somebody had asked if it was the second district or the second circuit, so I just wanted to make sure that people knew.
Okay.
so Amy, do you have more slides that you wanted to share?
I do. Lauren, are you good with me to take back over?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. All right, so I wanted to just talk about a couple of other bills that I think are interesting and that our League Repro Health and Justice Committee are watching closely. The first is a bill, we call it the anti-sex ed bill, and it basically will require students who are about to receive sex ed to have written permission from their parents in order to get those lessons. Now, currently, parents in Florida have the right to opt out if they're any of their students that they don't want to have sex ed. But this would require students to have the written permission. And when that has been imposed in other states, it's meant that thousands and thousands of students haven't been able to get this education, the sex ed, these lessons that that everyone needs. And it's not because parents oppose sex ed. In fact, Floridians over and over, parents and non-parents, have shown enormous support for sex ed in public schools. It's not that parents don't want it, it's that families are different and families are busy and kids are distracted and they don't get the forms in. And our opposition knows this, and they are trying to put up any barriers they can. The irony here, and I'm sure you all would agree, is that sex ed is what can really, it can really decrease in unintended pregnancy. It can decrease abortion, and it empowers students to be able to make healthier decisions regarding sex, regarding sexuality and all the rest. So it's like, it's just so ironic and hypocritical that, that the extremists are trying to limit who can get sex ed. We do have a couple of bills that we're really excited about. And the first one is the Reproductive Health Care Protection Act. And I'm kind of acting a little weird about it because I know that it's not going to get the support that it deserves, but it would codify abortion rights in Florida and make us no longer reliant on the privacy clause solely. Of course, Senator Berman and Representative Diamond are awesome champions of civil liberties generally, and they were really brave to put this bill out there, but I don't see it going anywhere. But the next one, the Dignity Act, is one I do have hope for. It would require Florida to provide period products or pads, tampons, and other, menstruation hygiene items in the restrooms in public schools. And you all might think, at first, when I heard this, I was like, what? The schools couldn't afford that. But the more I think about it, schools can afford toilet paper and schools can afford soap. And those are things that people need to maintain their hygiene and to be ready to learn. We have to have those things. And girls or people who are menstruating must have period products. I found out that it is the #1 reason why girls miss school in Florida is because they don't have the products they need to manage menstruation. And so it seems like after I thought about it, it's like, yeah, the least we can do, if we're providing toilet paper, we should be providing these things as well. So anyway, it's an interesting bill. And by the way, I'm going to be referring to some websites and other resources throughout my little discussion. And those are all available at one central website, at one link tree, as we call it. And I'm going to put in chat the slide for this link tree so that you can access it later. You can bookmark it or you can look at it now, whatever. But when you go to this website, it'll have links to all the websites that I'm going to be talking about. So I know you all in Tallahassee, in our state capital, are already probably fully engaged in the democratic process of our state. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful to all of you who make the league's presence known on a daily basis during legislative session. I cannot thank you enough. But just to make sure, I want to go through just the basic actions that I'd like to invite you to take. The first is to make sure that your own legislator who represents you, your representative in the House and your state senator, that their contact information is in your phone, in your personal device, in your address book, so that when you're enraged or you're excited about some legislation, you will have their contact info at your fingertips. Or when you're waiting at the dentist's office or at the hairdresser and you have some downtime, you can take that time and use it to push a bill you care about or to oppose one when you're in opposition to. But having that information at your fingertips will remove a barrier that you don't need. Also, of course, contacting them in all the traditional ways: visits to the Capitol, visits to their office and district, talking to their staff, phoning, emailing, writing letters. All of those things are critical. But we're finding more and more that social media can be a really key way to drawing attention to things. And why is that? Well, it's because when you post something on social media and you tag the legislator, you're doing it in a public forum. And they are paying extremely close attention to what is said about them and to them on social media, especially Twitter. And almost all of them have handles where we can directly address them. And it's an easy way to give applause and thanks. It's an easy way to shame. So I suggest, even if you don't have a Twitter account yet, to set one up just for session in order to make your voice heard. We invite you to join our newsletter. I have a newsletter that I edit and publish every Friday morning. It includes action steps as well as upcoming events that are happening in the repro movement around the state. It also lists important articles that have been published in Florida newspapers and TV stations, as well as national ones about reproductive rights. It has job openings. So I invite you to join. The link to do that is on the link tree. Also, I really urge you, if you care about reproductive rights, to start talking about it and posting about it in a way that makes abortion seem really normal, because it is normal. Do you know that 1 in 4 American women will access abortion care during her lifetime? It is if 1 in 4 American women are doing it, it's pretty normal. If you look at the pictures on this Zoom, chances are 1 in 4 of us have had abortions. You'll say, that can't be, Amy. That's absurd. Well, the CDC has come out with the data, and it is true. You just don't know about it because people don't talk about it, because there's so much stigma around abortion, and that has to end, because abortion is normal, abortion is healthcare, abortion is a civil right. And the more we talk about it and post about it and share great content that is available on Progress Florida's social media channels, our FRF coalitions channels, Florida Planned Parenthood affiliates, the more we share, the more it becomes normal to our friends and family in our circles. Earlier, Kathy mentioned that I'm part of the Floridians for Reproductive Freedom Coalition, and that's true. And guess what? So are you, because the League of Women Voters of Florida is a critical founding member of this coalition that's made up of now more than 60 organizations. And the FRF coalition comes out with amazing actions and things. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that to come. On the link tree, you will also see kits to writing letters to the editor, and you'll see links to sign Progress Florida's petition or to contact your legislator through our portal. Of course, the league has its own ways to contact legislators, and I encourage you to use all those. I also ask you, as you plan your charitable giving for the year, to consider donating to your local abortion fund. This is a organization that these organizations are all over Florida, and they exist to help people who would not otherwise not be able to afford abortion care to be able to get it. And not just the abortion, the fees for the abortion itself, but also other things like helping cover childcare, transportation costs, et cetera. But there's no more direct way of ensuring someone can access care than by donating to that, except for maybe being an abortion provider. So Floridians for Reproductive Freedom, our big coalition. You all are in Tallahassee, so this is not a heavy lift for you. I invite you, in fact, I implore you to join us on February 22nd as we have a mobilization, statewide mobilization, bringing people from across the whole state, including buses, and people are coming by plane. I have my hotel reservations to get to the Capitol for a day of action on February 22nd. It will start early, 8 a.m. with orientation and breakfast, and we'll have press conference and training and of course, legislative visits and a speak out. And it will be a day of reproductive rights. And I know the League Lobby Days are coming up, and my hunch is that you all really participate that in full force in Tallahassee. And I appreciate that. I've come for many years to that event and it's fantastic. But if you would also consider joining us on the 22nd to focus solely on abortion rights, we would be so very, very grateful. And you can sign up. The link is on the link tree where you can sign up to state that you're coming to that. The Floridians for Reproductive Freedom also have a variety of other events that are coming up, including next week is Interfaith Week for Repro. You may know that Catholics for Life. The Catholic bishops have their big day of action next week, and they'll be there in the Capitol for a few days. So we decided to show that it's not just people of faith, Christians, including Catholics and all sorts of other people, Muslims, Jewish people, all can also care about reproductive rights and believe that Roe v. Wade should be the law of the land and that abortion should be accessible. So there are a couple of events, including a prayer service on Monday morning, to which many clergy are going to be participating in and legislators. And then that evening, a Faith and Repro Forum. Again, a diversity of clergy from across different faiths will be participating. On February 2nd, which is Wednesday, there will be a secular event that is actually hosted by American Atheists and our coalition to talk about a more secular view and why church and state must be separated, and how that confluence has on the topic of abortion has become got us to this crisis point. The following week actually it's also next week on the 3rd, there will be a forum at 6 p.m. with legislators and abortion providers to offer input and stories about how things are, how practices are impacted and how that impacts legislation. And then the following Monday, there will be a forum that is specifically for Black Floridians and to empower them, but also to study how the Black movement, Black rights movement, Black Lives Matter movement intersects with reproductive freedom. So anyway, those events are coming up. People ask me a lot of times, all the time, Amy, how can you do it? How can you stand it? You've been fighting for this for decades. I'm 53, and I have been working on it since I was in college in the late 80s. I bet some of you have been working on it longer than me. And how do we bear it? I mean, it is you can hardly believe that this is where we are. But I do sleep at night, and there are a couple of reasons why. Even though I know that Roe v. Wade is likely to be gutted or overturned, and even though I know that the privacy clause of the Florida Constitution is very vulnerable, I also know that our very dedicated Florida healthcare providers are going to do all that they can. They're going to go to any length to make sure that their patients get the care that they need. And I read recently a blog by a blogger down in Southwest Florida. His blog is called The Paradise Progressive. And he reported back in December 20th, that Stephanie Frame, who is the CEO of Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida, she spoke to a group, and I'm going to quote what he said. She said, "We are at the beginning stages of building one of the largest patient navigation systems in the state, connecting it to one of the largest patient navigation systems in the country. Planned Parenthood is putting together teams to help patients get to the healthcare services they need. If we lose the right here in Florida, we will turn that and begin moving patients out of the state to where they need to go." She talked about an additional option. She said, "We are thinking about a boat off of the east coast of Florida. We seriously are." She went on to describe how this boat could legally provide women's health services in international waters. And she said that she'd already been contacted by a pilot with a float plane who was going to start a network of pilots who would be willing to ferry people on their planes out to that vessel. And that, my friends, is the kind of thinking that gives me a certain degree of peace. And then the other thing is the fact that we no longer live in a world of pre-1973. We have options like telehealth, international telehealth, and domestic telehealth that we simply didn't have pre-Roe, when 5,000 women died every year from bad abortion care. And what I'm talking about is medication abortion or abortion pills, and the fact that people are now able to self-manage their own abortions. And it is my belief that we all need to get familiar with this concept so that we can have it in our back pocket in case someone we know needs it in the future. And basically, this abortion medication brings on a miscarriage, and it is safe and effective up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. It's a combination of two drugs. The round one that you can see on the slide is called mifepristone, or RU486. You may have heard that. You may remember back in the 90s when it was approved. It was a drug out of a French pharmaceutical company. And then 24 hours later, that drug is followed by a protocol of the other misoprostol, the 6-sided pills. And if taken following directions, it is 99% effective. And it is safe. And by safe, I mean it is safer than penicillin, it's safer than Viagra, it's safer than Tylenol. So this is a very safe protocol. Here in Florida, it's overregulated, as abortion is overregulated. All abortion care, whether surgical or pharmaceutical, requires that ultrasound be provided by the doctor that is going to be offering abortion care, and also that these materials, these state-written biased materials, are presented to the patient. We call it informed, they call it informed consent. And by the way, these materials that are put out by the Department of Health, mandated by the legislature, are not medically necessary. They're not accurate. They overstate risks associated with abortion. And the doctors providing the care they just can't stand it, but it's law. So anyway, these things have to be provided in person according to Florida law. So you may have heard back in December that the FDA lifted some of the restrictions on medication abortion, but it really didn't change anything here in Florida because the ultrasound is required and the in-person presentation of these state materials is required. So that, of course, keeps the cost high, and it reduces access to people who can't get to an actual provider. And that is where knowing about how to access abortion medications in other ways comes in. So what I want to make sure you know about is that there are international medical practices and international pharmacies that are within the reach of American people who need it. And part of my mission is to make sure that partners in our movement, now I'm talking as someone from Progress Florida, I'm very motivated to make sure that partners know about this, that they have accurate information, and that they know that reliable support is available. So PlanCpills.org is an amazing website. It has a guide. Folks type in their home addresses and they get immediately information about the medical services that offer abortion care in their region in person. And they also get information about other ways that Americans are accessing abortion pills. And by the way, those other ways, those international practices and pharmacies, they are given grades by Plan C, like letter grades. And Plan C orders packets, dozens of packets every week, just to continually test the quality of the drugs that are offered by these international vendors and the amount of time it takes. And so it's an accurate way for someone to find out where the trusted sources are. Just checking the time. All right, one last theme I wanted to talk about is anti-abortion pregnancy centers and our work in the coalition to expose them. And a lot of local leagues have gotten involved with this work too. Our opposition has effectively spread to so many communities across the nation and set up these little operations that are basically the home base for the anti-abortion movement in 200 locations across Florida. And they operate these pregnancy centers. And they've become, like I said, they've become ground zero for our movement. And I want to share with you, it's just a short little 2-minute video about this, how this works. The video just provides a really good orientation that would take me longer to do. So here we go.
Crisis pregnancy centers are popping up at a rapid pace all over the country. There are nearly 200 of them in Florida alone, outnumbering real reproductive healthcare providers by 4 to 1. What exactly are crisis pregnancy centers? They're fake clinics that exist to talk women out of abortion. Fueled by a staunch anti-abortion agenda, they use free pregnancy tests and ultrasounds as emotional tools instead of medical tools. Fake clinics claim to offer pregnancy-related medical services, but don't provide comprehensive reproductive health care at all. For starters, you won't get birth control at a fake clinic. Deceptive advertising is their MO. They place misleading ads under internet searches for abortion. They adopt names that sound like actual reproductive health centers. They intentionally locate themselves on the same block as actual abortion providers, sometimes even in the same building. All this to trick potentially pregnant women. Sound a little sketchy? Help us spread the word to keep unsuspecting women and girls from falling prey to their tactics. It all starts with awareness. These clinics often schedule appointments and follow-ups as far out as possible. They know timing is critical with pregnancy, and women who wait may face costs that are prohibitive or be too far along to get an abortion. They are also known to compel women to get into exam gowns. Why? Well, being separated from personal belongings does make it more difficult to leave. They might use lies to dissuade women from accessing contraception and abortion by linking them to infertility and breast cancer. Their staff and volunteers even pose as medical professionals wearing scrubs or white coats. Building awareness is just the start. Take actions online. Reach out to public officials. Get involved with visibility events. A lot more is needed to expose fake clinics in Florida. Join the campaign. Visit FloridaReproFreedom.com to learn how.
So you may be wondering, why is she talking about this when this is about health policy, public health policy? Well, the reason I bring this up is because these entities, these biased entities that mislead and even lie to people who have unintended pregnancy, they are being funded by our state government. Taxpayer dollars flow to them thanks to the legislature, $4 million every year. In fact, last year, it is a permanent line item in the budget now. And last year they decided last minute to throw in an extra $500,000 during budget negotiations. It is a constant source of frustration to me because I know that there are so many awesome, wonderful, actual preventive health programs that are going underfunded or even unfunded. And so I ask you, when you meet with legislators, when you have a chance, talk to them about these anti-abortion pregnancy centers and make sure that they know that you're unhappy that taxpayer money is going to them. You may be wondering, well, where are these places? I got the list just before this of, I try to keep a really good, solid understanding of where they are throughout Florida. So I pulled the ones off my list that are in Tallahassee. And you can see that, like from the video, they said they name them names that are purposefully deceptive. And I would say Women's Healthcare Clinic of Tallahassee. If you just saw that sign, you might think, oh yeah, that would be a place I could go for comprehensive reproductive health care. Sure, they might even offer abortion, but not only do they not offer abortion, they don't offer birth control. So if you've passed these, now maybe you already knew all about them. Now you know a little bit more, and we can't have it. I invite you to consider leaving negative reviews to warn people away from these places. Leave negative reviews on Yelp or on Google Maps. And on the link tree, I have linked to our kit that helps guide you through how to leave those reviews so that they will stick. Also, I just note that in Tallahassee, the last item on the list there on the slide, Florida Pregnancy Care Network, that actually is the headquarters, the state headquarters for the syndicate that oversees the funding that comes from the Department of Health, as well as the centers themselves. And by overseas, oh, I don't really mean overseas. They just are a pass through for the money. We did a big, our coalition, the FRF coalition, we did a big expose on them, and it's on our website, was published about a year ago. And the dysfunction that exists within that network is really, really astounding and sad. So anyway, that is the end of my formal presentation, and we've left 15 minutes for questions and comments. So Sally, what do you got?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that was really informative. Thank you so much. I'm really shocked to see that list of centers in Tallahassee, including Brehon, because I know some people affiliated with them. They do help pregnant women, but I didn't know they were also one of these fake clinics. And it is just so maddening that our state tax dollars fund these things. And I also wanted to comment how very clever these people are at how they name things. Like, I think, Lauren, you said that the name of this bill is Reducing Infant Mortality or something very, sounds very benign. But that's the thing, the opposition has really co-opted the language, co-opted the money. And we are so grateful for people like you, Amy, that are out there year after year after year. And in fact, one of our comments from Gail says she's been protesting it for over 55 years, sick and tired of all the crapola. And I think we all are feeling that way. But we got to keep fighting and keep educating people. And that, of course, is one of the missions of the league is voter education. And people just have no idea what's happening with our tax dollars and our money and our democracy and our freedom and our privacy and all these things that are being attacked. So it's so important that we learn more about it. So thank you very much, Amy. And Lauren, thanks for your comments as well. And we appreciate you being up here. Let me see if there's any other comments. Kathy, do you see anything in the chats that we need to cover here? Oh, here.
Yes, we have some questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the first one we already answered, but somebody wants to know, Gloria Colvin wants to know, how expensive are the abortion pills? And she says, I imagine that they're not covered by health insurance. Do you have any information about that, Amy?
For sure. Many abortion plans do cover, many insurance plans do cover abortion care. Private insurance, not of course Medicaid, but private insurance. And that includes surgical abortion or abortion pills, medication abortion. Now, but if folks are private paying because they don't have insurance or because they don't want to turn it into insurance, because they don't want it on their record, they don't want their spouse to know or their mom to know, or whoever the carrier is, and they private pay, abortion pills abortion pill provision is about the same as surgical abortion that is under 12 weeks of pregnancy. And in Florida, that ranges from probably like $450 to $600. Now, I will tell you that if you were to visit, if people visit aidaccess.com, I'm sorry, let me go back for a second, not AIDAC, the plancpills.org, plancpills.org, that's the website I was mentioning earlier. And they see the guide to all of the international vendors. The prices are listed there. And honestly, I have seen prices as low as $99. In fact, the highest rated international vendor, which operates out of the Netherlands, they ship it to Americans for $99. So that is, that is something to consider. Additionally, and this is an interesting little tidbit, they used to require proof of pregnancy. But now, because they view things in the United States as being so dire regarding abortion access, they are now shipping the drugs as a preventative thing so that folks can have it in their medicine cabinet in case they need it. So that's a very interesting thing too, for the same price.
Carol Weissert wants to know, is this the same thing as the morning after pill?
It is not. And this is a very important distinction, entirely different medication and an entirely different result. So the so-called morning after pill is emergency contraception that folks can take if they have unprotected sex. And it is good up to 5 days after unprotected sex. So it really shouldn't be called the morning after pill anymore, because we found that it's actually good. It can be effective at preventing pregnancy up to 5 days after unprotected sex. The sooner it's taken, the more effective it is. So it's important for someone to get their hands on it quickly. I will note that it is not as effective for people who weigh over 165 pounds. So as for heavier people, heavier patients, a great form, or actually for anyone, but particularly for heavier people, getting an IUD inserted within 5 days after unprotected sex also is emergency contraception. Now, I just want to state again that this prevents pregnancy, whereas the abortion pills, they stop a pregnancy. So they actually, a pregnancy has occurred, and up to 12 weeks, an abortion pill can end that pregnancy. They're entirely different medications.
Okay.
Someone else wants to know if we could get the list of Tallahassee locations for the pregnancy health centers.
I will put them in chat, but also if you, on the link tree, if you follow the link to the leaving negative reviews for anti-abortion pregnancy centers, they are listed there, but I'll put it in chat right now.
Yeah, or you could send it to me or Kathy. That would be helpful. We can get it out to our members, because it's sometimes hard to copy things off of chat.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I recognize that it looks like Trish Neely is here with us, who's our main Lobby Corps lady, and I think she was down at the House Bill 5 meeting. Trish, are you on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. What happened? We heard.
Oh,
I had to leave when the riot started. I'm sure the governor's going to refer to it as a riot. So do we have more information?
no, not really. I mean, they cleared the room as soon as the riot started. So there was no vote. I haven't had a chance because I wanted to get home and jump onto this and listen to Amy, who I just absolutely adore. So I haven't been able to reach out to Jeff or Lauren to find out. So now, since there was no vote, what's going to happen next? What's the next step?
Trish,
Yes.
I just got an email from Annie at Planned Parenthood, and she says it did pass favorably through the appropriations, strictly along party lines.
So they brought everybody back in and voted without us being there. That's sad. Very sad. I was disappointed that they really didn't even consider the two Democratic amendments, both of which I thought were very reasonable, and there was no reason to not consider them. But oh well, that's just what it's like down there right now.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed that I did not get to speak on behalf of the league. I was ready.
I saw you. I was watching it on television and I saw you there in the audience. So I knew you were there. So I figured you had an update about what happened, but evidently you didn't get to stay long enough to find out that they went back in and did pass it, did report it favorably.
Yeah, well, I waited, but the sergeants cleared the room.
Okay. Okay, and we'll be happy to give anybody any information they need, but it sounds like Amy's website has information on the other bills that were mentioned, the sex ed bills. We really need to get down there and testify on those because it's opt-in instead of opt-out. And that's a situation where a lot of our young ladies and young men will not get the education they need to avoid becoming pregnant when they don't have the resources or the ability to deal with that. So I think we definitely need information. We'll be following that. If you would like any information, I'm sure Amy could give it to you, or if you email me, I'll be able to help you with some of that too. Let me see. Jan Myrick wants to know, are there any statistics on how many abortions are provided as, quote, DNCs, which we all used to know as DNCs, where they just sort of fixed a problem, wealthy people could go to their doctor and get that abortion, but it wasn't referred to as an abortion.
Yeah. I mean, anytime an abortion happens, whether it is an abortion provider in a clinic or whether it's in a hospital, it's supposed to be reported to the State Department of Health. And, how many of them actually are or not, how many happen in private doctors' offices, as Kathy just mentioned, and aren't reported, we have no way of knowing that, do we?
If you look at House Bill 5, go on just Google online sunshine or somehow get to the legislative page. You can put in House Bill 5. It talks a lot about reporting also, in addition to the 15-week ban. There's information about reporting and there's information about the provisions that they include in there on improving fetal and maternal mortality. So you may be interested in taking a look at House Bill 5. The Senate bill is very similar. There's not much difference.
I would note that, there have been some campaigns by our opposition to get abortion bans passed within certain cities or at the county level, the city of Naples, the city of Lakeland, Manatee County. They've all in the last year, we've been fighting these local abortion bans too. And they'll say, like Manatee County, the folks will say, well, there are no abortion providers here. So this is just, this is just in theory, it's not a big deal. That at those hospitals, DNCs are happening. And there may not be a clinic, but there are medically necessary abortions happening, and any kind of local ban is going to criminalize doctors who provide this much needed care. So we're all for protecting the DNCs. We're all for protecting abortion medication, surgical, whatever it takes. We need to help people get the care they need.
Well,
Okay.
I think it's 7 o'clock here, and I think that it's about time to close it up. But I wanted to recommend one of the most compelling presentations, I guess you would call it, I ever heard, was Representative Allison Tant, who on the floor of the House last year talked about her personal experience. And it was just riveting. And she was talking about having a child who's have a lot of disabilities and, you know, a lot of medical expenses, and how the fact that they have been able to afford it, but you just can't force people. I mean, it was really, really good. And I just admire her so much that she was willing to share those personal stories. And obviously it had no impact on any of the opposition. But if there's some way that you could find that, Amy, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere or something, but it really was powerful to me. And I think, you know, we need more of those stories, personal stories about how the whole family is impacted, not just the mother and, you know, the parent, but the, you know, the other brothers and sisters when a pregnancy happens that isn't going to work out. So somehow we need to bring back empathy, which seems to be sorely lacking in many of these people, and common sense. And again, we thank you so much for what you're doing. And Lauren, thank you for being up there day after day fighting for the league and our issues. And Kathy and Trish and our other Lobby Corps volunteers that are up there day after day trying to bring sense up there. So with that, I think we'll call it an evening. And thank you again, everybody, for attending. And look for our next February Hot Topics is going to be about climate and energy issues. So that should be interesting. We've got some good speakers lined up for that. So again, good night. Thank you for being here and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you very much. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.